continue to live unless God has other plans for him. So spoke my master, and the giant stretched out in haste those hands whose grip clasped Hercules, and took my leader Virgil, when he felt that, said to me, now, Virgil speaking to Dante the pilgrim, now, come here, that I may seize good hold of you. One more time, just like on Geryon, right, when he was holding on to it. And of himself and me, he made one bundle. So very much like, so notice again, I pointed this out in earlier lectures. Notice the relationship, right, between Dante and Virgil, the two together. Virgil's going to take care of them, right? As, now we get an interesting simile, as seems to one who sees the leaning tower at Garisenda in Bologna. When, kind of think of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's a different tower. When he is under the leaning side, and when a cloud is passing over, going the other way, from how the tower inclines. When the cloud passes over, there's a tendency to get the sense that the tower is falling towards you. So in my dread, Antaeus seemed to me, as I watched him lean, that moment, I would have wished for another road. In other words, the big giant starts leaning down. He's like, oh, he says, I wish I could have had another way to go. But having stooped, he set us gently upon that bottom. Lucifer is swallowed in, along with Judas. Nor did he stay bent down. This is again Cositus, right? But like a ship's mast, raised himself again. Now notice this, as seems to one who sees the leaning tower at Garisenda. We're back to the opening lines again, where, whoa, what is that city? No, that's not a city. Those are actually giants. Oh. We're back to this idea. Everything is not what it appears. We're back to Plato and Book 7 of the Republic, the cave allegory. Go back to our lectures in the AP folder if you have forgotten that important information. In other words, the point I want to make here is that Dante, through the course of Inferno, has addressed all of the major thinkers and writers one way or another, and is going to play games with their ideas. Dante the philosopher, the great integral thinker. We'll have more to say about that in our final review lecture as we ask, what makes Dante so great? We're back at it. All right, let's work level 2 and 3 really quickly at 2A. Well, obviously, one of the things here is that language keeps us together, and language also is what separates us, right? Of course, another major message here is to fight against the gods is futile. We saw this in the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid. Here we see it as well, right? As well, notice this interesting idea, that physical strength is no match for intellectual strength, right? Virgil, for example, will even reference stupidity at line 66 for Nimrod, calling him stupid. And of course, to finish, everything is not what it appears. We're back, right, to Plato's Republic 7, the idea of shadows on a wall. Those people sitting chained up think that they're real, but they're not actually real. At 2B, well, we got some interesting symbolism. Obviously, the giants here, they're big and they're dumb, but they're not very intelligent at all. And of course, the irony is that they are strong, but they're stuck. Or they try to talk in Nimrod, but he can't talk. Dante is poet, again using mythology of Greeks and Romans. He is a humanist, and so he kind of does this thing where it's suspension of disbelief. I mean, he knows, his audience knows, Jove is not a real god. The God of the Bible is the real God, and yet notice the reference. Milton in Paradise Lost do the same game. Dante as politician. I think this is a very subtle insight for Dante, that language is, and the confusion of language at the Tower of Babel, is the key in many ways to explain why Florence and all of Italy can never seem to get along, right? And the language, you'll notice all the way through Inferno. We've had times where Farinata recognized Dante, for example, as Tuscan because of the way he spoke. But remember, Cavalcante will have a misunderstanding because of language, right? What, Guido, my son is dead? Well, no, Dante didn't actually say that. Dante the philosopher. Well, if you'll go back to our lecture on Plato, and you remember that we played that two-box theory of the physical versus the metaphysical, that which is beyond the physical, we're playing that game from the first box in the shadows on the wall. That is to say, sometimes things are not so clear, and it takes time for your eyes to come adjusted to the light, and then ultimately you can understand. Well, at 3A, the Iliad, obviously, we've got Achilles and his spear. Again, this is a very interesting thing, that Achilles ends up now 3 times, and the third time, very briefly about his spear, and that is it. Fascinating. It's, of course, kind of ironic, too, right? That of the three times, only one of them is ever mentioning Achilles as the great warrior with his, of course, that famous spear. We know all about that spear from our study of the Iliad. Think about this in the Odyssey. Remember Polyphemus, the Cyclops, right? And the way in which he was big and strong, but he was also kind of dumb. Remember how, and therefore kind of uncultured. Remember he eats Odysseus' men. Remember that Odysseus tells him, my name is nobody, and he's kind of dingy, and he calls him nobody again. What's your favorite giant text? Could ask you that one in 3A. And 3B, what was the time language got in the way for you? Think about Prufrock from our study of the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It is impossible to say just what I mean. When we study our Hamlet, we'll be playing with the same game, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. The way that language can sometimes get in the way. We can't say what we want to say. Who's been the giant in your life? That is to say, the Antaeus of your life. The one who helps you, or the one who hurts you because the big and strong and dumb, right? Who is that? You can think about, that's a motif, a stereotype in a lot of our texts, isn't it? It comes in large measure from Dante. What was a time for you in your life? Another 3B question. What was a time when intelligence was better than physical strength, that it worked out better? Well, there you go. That's Canto 31. We're now ready for Cantos 32, 33, 34, and the conclusion of Inferno. We're going to now be not where there's fire, but where there's ice, right? Cocytus is the middle, and here we're going to see the betrayers. The worst of all the sinners of Dante's hell are going to be resigned to ice. We'll come back and we'll go to work with them. Thank you.